Welcome back everybody, my name is Tucker, and today's video is the beginning of a series of videos where I take a look at NBA history and past NBA champions, but not so much how they won the title or what they did in order to win that title specifically, but more so how they built their roster, the moves that they made, whether it be free agency or trades or the draft, that allowed them to build the team that eventually won them a title. Now, as always, be sure to go down in the comment section below and let me know some suggestions for teams that you would like to see covered in this series in the future. But today, we're going to begin with a team that pretty often is given the title of the last championship team to win the title without a true star or superstar, and that's the 2004 Detroit Pistons. Now, to me, it's interesting that that's a description that continues to get thrown around for this team because the five-man starting unit that they ended up winning the title with combined for 16 All-Star selections, 8 All-NBA selections, and 12 All-Defense selections across their careers. But let's go ahead and take a look and see how they got each of these guys, beginning with Rip Hamilton. So in the beginning of his career, Hamilton was supposed to be part of a youth movement with the Washington Wizards after being selected 7th overall in the 1999 draft and posting great numbers in his first few seasons with the team. However, before the 2001 season, Michael Jordan announced that he would return to the NBA with the Washington Wizards on the court after spending a year and a half in the front office. And a year later, before the 2002 season, Rip Hamilton was traded to the Pistons in an effort to put more veteran players around MJ for what ended up being his last season in the NBA for good. The Pistons, meanwhile, had some success with another strong backcourt player on their roster, Jerry Stackhouse, who they acquired from the Philadelphia 76ers in 1997 after he struggled to gel with Allen Iverson, which led to a deal that, among other pieces, sent Stackhouse to Washington in exchange for Hamilton in 2002. Upon arriving in Washington, Stackhouse had a good first season with the Wizards, but struggled in his second season and eventually was moved for Antoine Jamison, while Hamilton continued his rise as one of the best two-way backcourt players in the league, averaging over 18 points per game across 9 seasons with the team and being named an All-Star from 2006 to 2008. And just a couple of seasons into his Pistons career, Hamilton was invaluable for Detroit in the 2004 finals, leading the team in scoring, being second assist, playing great defense, all while leading the team in minutes at over 45 a game in a series in which they eventually won the championship. And even though you could certainly make the case that had the Pistons never traded Jerry Stackhouse for Rip Hamilton, but still made all the other moves that I'm going to talk about in this video, they still would have been very good and maybe even still won the 04 title. But it's also important to note that Hamilton just fit what this team ended up becoming so much more than Stackhouse did, as more of a two-way player than more of the scoring focused game that Stackhouse brought to the team. Moving on now, let's talk about Hamilton's backcourt partner in Detroit, Chauncey Billups, who probably has one of the most interesting career storylines, certainly early career storylines, of any player in league history. Billups was traded just 51 games into his rookie season after being drafted 3rd overall by the Rick Pitino era Celtics, who was a person that he just never really got along with in terms of a coach-player relationship. So here's the full timeline of Billups' early career. He was drafted by Boston in 97, as I said. He was traded to the Raptors in 98, traded to the Nuggets in 99, traded to the Magic in 2000, but never played a game for them due to some injury issues, and went into that summer looking for a new contract and considered by pretty much everyone to be a complete draft bust. That offseason, he signed a contract with the Timberwolves and actually had a solid first season with the team, and then a breakout second season after some of the starters suffered some injuries and he was able to step up, which caught the attention of the Detroit Pistons in the 2002 offseason, where he signed a 5-year, $35 million deal to be their starting point guard. And then from there, Billups became the player that we ended up knowing for the next decade or so as a great two-way player, someone that was going to make big shots and play great defense as just a really solid point guard. And he had never even averaged more than 14 points per game before coming to Detroit, but then he won the 2004 Finals MVP, playing over 38 minutes a game, was second on the team in scoring, first on the team in assists, and was named to 5 straight All-Star teams from 2006 to 2010 and finished 5th in the 2006 NBA MVP voting. And it's just another incredible story among many of them for this Pistons team that they were able to get a player that was so impactful for them and was their Finals MVP after he had had such a struggle to begin his career, being traded 4 different times and then having to play for 5 different teams in 5 years, being traded 51 games into his rookie season after being drafted 3rd overall, and obviously ended up working out great for him and the team with the 2004 championship. But it's just a crazy saga for him to end up in Detroit on that championship team. Next up now is one of the best wing defenders that the NBA saw during this guy's time in the league, and it's Tayshaun Prince. And this is decidedly less complicated than any other player or roster move that I'm going to talk about in this video, because it's pretty simple. They drafted Tayshaun Prince with the 23rd pick in the first round of the 2002 NBA draft, and even though he never made an all-star team like some of the bigger names in that draft class like Yao Ming and Amari Stoudemire and Caron Butler and Carlos Boozer, he did make an all-defense team 4 different times in his career. And just like every other player in this video, he was awesome in the 2004 finals. He was 3rd on the team in minutes, led the team in steals, and just played great all-around defense in just his 2nd season in the league. And I think that's something that a lot of people overlook about this 04 Pistons team, is that Tayshaun Prince wasn't some veteran. He wasn't some guy that had been in the league for 6 or 7 years and really knew everything that it took to be a true professional. He was only in his 2nd season in the league, and like I said, was 3rd on the team in minutes, was a huge part of that team, and specifically in those finals, and ended up getting a lot better and being an even bigger part of the team. But for him to be mature enough to play in such a big role in the biggest stage against one of the really good teams in the league, and the Lakers at the time in those finals, is really incredible, and something that just really doesn't get talked about enough with that 04 Pistons team. And now we get to the front court and one of the most, in my opinion, interesting guys in NBA history, and that is Ben Wallace. And his path to the Detroit Pistons and to eventually becoming a champion is a lot more complicated than even I'm going to get into in this video, but I'm going to most specifically look at how he ended up in Detroit in the first place. So in the summer of 2000, the Detroit Pistons had a guy by the name of Grant Hill that was an extremely good player for them, and it became pretty clear that their star player in Hill was planning on leaving the team in the summer of 2000 to go play for the Orlando Magic, who were also trying to pair him with the likes of Tracy McGrady and Tim Duncan in that same offseason. So the Pistons obviously wanted any kind of value that they could get in return for Hill, and the Magic at the same time wanted to unload cap space in return for Hill's deal to create space to potentially sign those other stars that I mentioned. So in August of 2000, a sign and trade was made where the Magic received Chucky Atkins and Ben Wallace in exchange for Grant Hill. And at the time, it was pretty obvious that the Magic won the trade, which they always were going to, because it's a sign and trade. They were getting the best player, and really it was just kind of a mutually beneficial thing for them to unload cap space and with the Pistons to get really anything in return. And Wallace was a solid starter for the Magic the year before, played in 81 games for a team that won 41 games but didn't make the playoffs, even though his stats weren't anything to write home about. But he pretty much immediately became so much more for the Pistons during their run in the 2000s, as well as obviously the 2004 finals. He won Defensive Player of the Year 4 different times, was a 4-time All-Star, was a 6-time All-Defensive Team member, and in the 04 finals was 2nd on the team in minutes at over 40 a game and 1st in rebounds, as well as obviously playing great defense, which is what he was known for. So again, it's just another crazy situation where had Hill decided he wanted to stay in Detroit, or had it not been mutually beneficial for these two teams to make a sign and trade, then Wallace probably never would have ended up being a Piston, and I can guarantee you that if that didn't happen, they wouldn't have won the 2004 finals without Ben Wallace. So again, it's just a crazy, interesting way that they ended up getting such a core piece of their eventual championship team. And last up now, and I know I keep saying it, but it's just another fascinating storyline, a fascinating player in NBA history, and it's Rasheed Wallace, and it's how the Pistons ended up with him and how his career really went before the Pistons and then even during his tenure in Detroit. So the 2004 trade deadline, the Pistons sent out some players and some picks to both Boston and Atlanta in exchange for Mike James and Rasheed Wallace, who had just been traded to the Hawks and had played only 1 game with them and was a successful player in Portland before that as a 2-time All-Star, but certainly had issues with his temper and with picking up a ton of technical fouls, which would continue in his time with the Pistons. But despite those issues, Wallace was exactly the kind of player that Pistons team needed. He fit right in with his tough mindset, provided great front court scoring, and they really didn't have to give up much, and certainly not any of their other core 4 players to get him because of some of those issues and because of his pending contract running out in the following off season. And again, just like everybody else in this video, he was awesome in the 2004 finals. He was 3rd in scoring, 2nd in rebounds, 1st in blocks, played great defense, and hit some really big shots for that team as well. And in the end, those are really the only 5 guys to talk about in terms of this roster that were a really big deal in helping them win a championship. Because obviously they had other guys, but ironically, for a team that gets so much credit for winning a championship without a star or a superstar, there was a pretty big drop off in terms of minutes and production in the regular season, the playoffs, and the finals beyond this core of 5 guys of their starters. But as you guys know, they just played great defense. They were 5 players that fit so well together and that played extremely well in the 04 finals, and in certain ways were just a great matchup for that Lakers team that they ended up beating. But it's just, again, it's fascinating how they were able to build this team together, the circumstances that went into it, and I don't want to call it luck, but it's just a lot of things maybe not went their way, but just ended up working out well for them in terms of these moves to bring in these 5 players. And they got all these guys in different ways, whether it was trades a couple of years before they won the championship, like Rip Hamilton and Ben Wallace, or signing Chauncey Billups in free agency, or drafting Tayshaun Prince, or a trade deadline deal for Rasheed Wallace. All the different ways that you can build a championship team, the Pistons pretty much utilized all of them to win the 2004 championship, which is one of the big reasons why I wanted to begin this series or mini series focusing on them and how they were able to build their title winning team. And there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Like I said in the beginning, if you guys have suggestions for which teams you would like to see me cover in terms of how they built their championship team in this series moving forward, then be sure to leave those down in the comment section below, and I will be sure to take a look at them. Once again, my name is Tucker. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.